Hi guys, James at Rampant Lion Reviews again for you today with another beer review. For this one, we are going to cross the Øresund once again, and we're going to go back to Sjaelland in Denmark and revisit a brewery that's featured on the channel many times before. Now, I've had many nice beers from these guys over the years, lots of different styles, and if people were to ask me about this brewery, I would say that they are very solid all round. They're also one of the best known names when it comes to Danish craft beer. And they were actually one of the first Danish craft breweries that I discovered when I was getting into craft beer back in the day. Now, the beer that we're going to have a look at today is one of their latest releases through Systembolaget here in Sweden. It's a style that I haven't tried from these guys before, or I guess I should say a sub-style I haven't tried from them before, but it is a sub-style that I very much enjoy, and one that you don't come across all that often actually, but we have been seeing more of these in recent times, come to think of it. So, needless to say, I'm very curious to see what this one is going to have in store for us. Hopefully it's another good beer, hopefully it makes for an interesting review, and as always I hope that you guys watching enjoy my take on this one as well. So yeah, for this review then, we are going to head to Svinninge, which is in the western part of Sjaelland, out to the west of Copenhagen, and we're going to have a look then at another beer from Toul. So this particular beer is called the 45 Days Rice Lager. It comes in at 5% ABV, and I think from the name you know what style this one is. But yeah, we've had a good number of beers from the 45 Days series that Toul do. They've got a number of huge lager tanks in that new facility that they have, and they've been experimenting a lot with like the 45 Days Pilsner and all these kind of things over the last little while. So to find a rice lager is pretty cool. I'm sure those of you watching the channel for any length of time will know about my connections to Japan, and I do love a good rice lager. The one that Mikkeller have in the blue can is absolutely lovely, so I'm curious to see what Toul's take on this particular style is. But yeah, let's crack on with this one then and see what it's all about. Always nice to return to Toul, and it does feel like a wee while since we've had something from these guys. So, as always with my reviews then, I'll tell you a little bit about the brewery before we taste the beer. If you want to get straight to the tasting though, just fast forward. All the usual links can be found in the video description below. That's the brewery website, the link to my other reviews that I've done from Toul before, and we will no doubt add more to that list in the near future. But there's all the usual social media down there. If you want to see more reviews, do please consider subscribing to the channel. The support that you give is massively appreciated, and remember you can go into the channel homepage and search for beer using the geography tagging system. So just go in there, use the search bar, put your hometown, state, county, whatever you like in there. If I've reviewed beers from the area that you search for, they will pop up. Failing that though, you can check out the playlist of beers from different countries. You'll find this one in the Danish playlist, sorry, amongst many other things, and we are adding to that quite regularly. And you can of course check out the playlist of beers from other countries as well, Scotland, Sweden, wherever you like. There are quite a few in there that you can check out. But yeah, let's go on then and get started with our brewery history section. So on to my brewery notes. So, Toul, or Two Beers as it would be in English, was founded by Tobias Emil Jensen and Tore Ganger, who were students of Mikael Bjergso, the big boss of Mikkeller. So originally they brewed with him in their school kitchens back in 2005, and they continued to homebrew until about 2010 when they founded Toul, which, like I said earlier, in Danish means two beers. But when Mikael heard that his former students were still brewing, he insisted that they do a collaboration brew, and it was this that became the first Toul beer, the double IPA, simply titled IIPA. But they very quickly built a strong reputation for themselves, and with the help of Mikkeller and their distribution connections, they managed to get their beers across the world from very early on. But as is the case with Mikkeller, these guys were originally a gypsy brewery, and so they didn't own their own equipment, and they used spare capacity at other large breweries. Quite a lot of their beer, of course, was brewed at the De Proef Brewery in Lochristerhefte, just outside of Ghent in Belgium, and they were brewing things in other places too, from what I gather. But in Nørrebro in Copenhagen, they have a collaborative beer bar with Mikkeller. This is called Mikkeller and Friends, and this was their kind of home base as such for a very long time. But this bar has an exclusive bottle shop, over 40 different beers on tap, and these days they've also got the Bruce Brew Pub in Copenhagen, which opened back in 2016 in partnership with Christian Gadiant, and there's now a second Bruce bar in Oslo. From what I understand, these two Bruce Brew Pubs operate pretty much completely independently. They are just kind of Toul owned, but the brewers there have complete freedom to kind of do as they like basically and order their own ingredients and things like this. But there are co-owners in the different. They are co-owners, of course, in the different Mikkeller and Friends venues, which now includes the bar in Reykjavik and also the bottle shop in Torvahallen in Copenhagen, and they also co-own the Cool Ship and Micropolis bars in the city as well. I think, if I remember rightly, Micropolis is right next to the Mikkeller and Friends. But since 2017, Tore Gainter has been in charge of the company after Tobias Emil Jensen left to found the ETOH, or Ethanol Spirits Company. So yeah, only Tore Gainter in charge of Mikkeller, of Toul at the moment still. But as of 2019, these guys have a new production facility at Svinninge on Sjaelland, which is, like I say, is on the western part of the island. This has a 150,000 square metre floor space, and they plan to have a clean side of the brewery, which has a large German Braucon kit, and this side of the brewery is run by Tim, and there's also a sour side with fodders and a cool ship for producing the different sour beers, and this is run by Nathan Borg, and a lot of the space there as well is used for barrel aging, which is kind of cool. So we will be seeing more and more sour beers from Toul over the next few years. They released the first beers from Toul City in March of 2020, and as of May 2023, when I'm filming this review for you, these guys have produced around 700 different kinds of beer, according to Untappd. So, yeah, that is everything I can tell you about Toul for the moment. Like I said, these guys were one of the first Danish craft brews that I ever came across back in the day. And, you know, I'm trying to think, you know, some of my favourite beers from these guys. First Frontier was always a very nice one. What was it called? Dangerously Close to Stupid was a lovely old school West Coast IPA as well. You know, like I say, we've had some really awesome beers from these guys over the years. So this is one of the Danish breweries that you definitely want to check out. In more recent times, they've been releasing a lot of like New England Hazy double IPAs and stuff like this. They've got a series of double IPAs that are numbered basically. But yeah, as I say, check out the brewery website, follow them on Facebook and Instagram to keep up to date with all the latest goings on, and you can of course check out the Rate Beer, Untappd and Beer Advocate pages to learn a wee bit more about all the different beers that these guys have done. So yeah, let's go on and have a little look at this beer itself. So as you can see, the artwork on this one is kind of similar to what we've seen from Toul before. Plain silver top on the can there. You can see that it's a 440ml can. This one, I believe, only cost me like 35 Swedish kroners, if I remember correctly. So it was a very, very good price, actually. Especially when it's an import. Usually you add on about 10 kroners to the price because of the, you know, because of the imports and things like this. But yeah, like I say, it looks very, very nice, this one. Nicely presented as always. I don't think there's anything else we really need to say about the appearance of the can there, and you know the price. So I think we can get this guy out and get on and have a look at the beer itself now. There we are. So let's do this. This does look good. So, there we are. Oh, this does look very nice, I have to say. So like I said to you earlier, you know, I've got family connections in Japan. I love the Asian lagers and stuff like this. So, yeah, whenever I see a rice lager that's European brewed or brewed anywhere else, I always enjoy these. But, yeah, anyway, as you can see, the beer, this beer poured with about a half finger of a bumpy, I would say kind of cream white head. It has faded away, it is fading away to just be a very, very thin, slightly foamy layer there. There's a little island of bubbles in the middle of the glass, but you can see a nice kind of thicker ring around around the edge of it as well. But yeah, one or two big bubbles sticking toward the side of the glass, a few little ones going up toward the bottom of the head there, but overall it does look pretty damn nice. You can see lovely kind of pale golden straw colour in there, one or two big bubbles sticking toward the side of the glass and a few little ones going up toward the surface there. So it does look nice, pretty much as you would expect from a rice lager, to be honest with you. Remember, the colour of your beer depends on a few things. One, the type of malts that you use. This goes a long way to determining your EBC rating. Two, length of your wort boil is also going to play a role, because the longer you boil the wort, the more the sugars caramelise, and thus you get a darker colour of beer. But any barrel aging that you do or adjuncts you put in will affect the colour of the beer as well. And with a kind of light and blonde type beer like this, it wouldn't surprise me if it really wouldn't surprise me if the rice did play a slight role in changing the colour of this beer. But as I say, crystal clear, it looks very nice, this one. We can have a proper look at the aroma of this beer then and see what it's all about. Let's do this. Very, very curious about this one. Oh yeah, that does smell pretty nice actually. Yeah, aroma wise, this is pretty damn good. So, on the with this one, it kind of gives you everything you'd expect of the rice lager. You've got a little bit of a more kind of malty. You have got a little bit of a more malty and kind of sweet, oily kind of character to this one, which is what you'd expect. You've got a nice little bit of grassy green component there. You've also got a little bit of oily, fruity character as well. These are all characteristics that you would expect of a rice lager, to be honest with you. But let's just try and break this down and describe it a wee bit more. Let's just try and break it down and describe it a wee bit more in depth, if you like. So, yeah, so in terms of the what do you call it, the backbone of this beer, I would say you've got a nice little bit of kind of fresh white bready bread crust in there. That's the absolute backbone of the beer. There's a wee bit of nice kind of dryness in there. Yeah, fresh white bread crust, wee bit of dryness there, a little tiny touch of woodiness for me as well actually. But then above the kind of, above the bread crust you're starting to get, there is a little bit of a kind of fluffy and fresh white bread out of this one. So the way that that goes together is really quite nice actually. Yeah, fresh fluffy white bread in there, and then above that you can smell the kind of oily rice layer coming out of this beer, which is nice. I do wonder if there's a little touch of Pilsner malt in this one. I'm getting a wee touch of Pilsner malt just in the back of the nose, you know, that little bit of crisp dryness and things that you can get from that. So that's coming out for me. Yeah, definitely. A lovely little bit of kind of crisp, dry Pilsner malt coming out of this one. Yeah, definitely at the back. The more and more I smell this one, I'm just trying to pick that out, whether it is the Pilsner malt in there. But yeah, you can certainly get this little bit of crisp, smooth, kind of dry white bready thing at the back of the nose, which I do like. And then, yeah, further forward on this one, further forward with this one, you do have a little bit of a, more, how would you say, how does this work? You've got a little bit of that, yeah, more kind of, you do get a wee bit more of that, you get the oily sweet rice, there's a little touch of like a kind of McVitie's digestive biscuity sweetness in there as well, and a little bit of the more kind of oily, sweet kind of caramelly type stuff in there too, which I quite like. And then, yeah, I like that about this one, for sure. Yeah, interesting how that pieces together actually. So yeah, there's an interesting malt base. I'm curious to see how kind of crisp this beer is going to be, or whether it's going to be a more sort of oily type lager beer rather than anything else. But let's have a wee look at the, I think that's everything we really need to say about the malty base of this one. The only other thing I would note is that I start to get a wee bit of like cracker out of this one the further into the aroma that you delve. But yeah, certainly on the hoppy side of things, it's quite interesting. There's a little bit of There is a little touch of earthiness in there, so quite a smooth earthiness. There's a little bit of herbal character. Then you've got a more oily floral note out of this one, and some more oily kind of grassy characters pushing their way out of the beer as well, which are really quite nice. So yeah, the green component in this beer is not madly punchy, but it does have quite a little bit of depth to it, which I really quite enjoy. So on the on the fruity side of things with this one, it's quite interesting. You've got a little bit of gooseberry pushing out of the beer. So you can smell that the backbone of this beer for me is kind of gooseberry. I often get this type note out of rice lagers and sakes and things. There's always a good little bit of like gooseberry type character in there. Yeah, so as I say, nice little bit of gooseberry character, lovely little bit of a kind of how would we say, like a sort of, there's a very slight touch of a kind of limey note to this one as well, but you're also getting wee touches of like oily pear and yeah, wee bit of oily pear, wee tiny bit of sultana, but mainly an oily gooseberry and a very, very slight sort of lime coming out of this one. So yeah, the way it goes together, I think, is quite nice. So yeah, the way that this goes together in that sense is really quite interesting. So yeah, I like how that goes together. It's a big, big thumbs up from me. The aroma of this is very, very nice, and I'm getting thirsty smelling it. So we'll get the rest of it into the glass, and I think we should have a taste of this one. But as I always say, take a wee bit of time to just enjoy the aroma of your beers before you get stuck into them. But let's do this. This is the 45 Days Rice Lager at 5% ABV from Totul in Svinninge on Sjaelland in Denmark. Slange, skål, cheers. So, yeah, the way that this beer goes together is really, really nice. Nice and just and big and oily. So, yeah, this is nice. I could easily down this beer. Very, very I could, just easily gulp this thing and demolish it. So we have to be a bit careful with this one. But this is nicely done, actually. I've just got it. It's just at a nice temperature now. I think I had it sitting for like 5-10 minutes or so before I started filming, and it's kind of having that little bit of extra light temperature to it. It's quite interesting, I have to say. I do like that about this beer. Yeah. This is quite, this is really nicely done, in a sense. So I'm going to say thumbs up to Totul once again. With this, their lager beers, they've been, they started the lager beers, I want to say, about a year and a half ago, something like that, if I remember correctly. And they've just been getting better and better at them as time goes on. But in terms of what you would want from a rice lager, this one, it's one of the more oily ones, but it gives you the kind of crispness and dryness and things that you would want in the aftertaste. So yeah, it kind of has everything you would expect from this style. This is one of the more kind of straightforward beer styles, I guess you could say, but it does everything you would like. So let's look at it. Middle third of the palate then. Let's have a wee look at this. Yeah, so that middle third of your palate. The backbone of the beer, you can see it's got that lovely kind of fresh white bready bread crust that you'll often find in lager beers. Very nice, kind of fresh, fluffy white bread, but yeah, you've got that little bit of bread crusty edge there. If you go a little bit further forward to the, I would say, kind of just the front of that middle 30 palate, you can feel there's a little touch of woodiness in there for sure. and then above that kind of bread crusty layer, you get a touch of, you get a layer of kind of Jacob's cream cracker coming out of this one, which I think is really quite nice as well. So yeah, the way that that pieces together is quite nice with this one, I have to say. On the above the kind of cracker, you start to then get the fluffy white bread with this one, and it's not too airy and fluffy, but it's quite it is quite airy and fluffy, and yeah, there's a little touch of crispness to this one as well. Like definitely at the back of that front third, at the back of that middle third of your palate, you do get a nice little bit of a kind of fresh, crisp character out of this one, which I do enjoy. So you can feel that little bit of Pilsner malt in there too. So yeah, you can feel that little bit of Pilsner malty crispness at the back of that middle third of your palate, but as you come further forward, the beer has a little bit more of a, like I say, it does have a little bit of a more kind of oily, there's a wee bit of a more kind of oily, juicy note to this one. So you can feel the crisp layer, the oily kind of rice coming out of this one. So that kind of sits there. The oily rice layer is quite nice. I really enjoy it. This is one of the things I really enjoy about the rice lagers, and you can feel that the rice kind of sweetens up the further forward on that middle third of the palate that you come. But then above that, you've got a little circle sitting there, and you've got a wee bit of kind of McVitie's digestive biscuits. So yeah, that little bit of McVitie's digestive biscuit is in there. You've got a wee touch of, there is a tiny little bit of like an almost sweet caramel in the dead centre of your palate, then a wee bit of the more kind of McVitie's digestive biscuity note coming out of it. So yeah, the way that goes together is really quite interesting. So yeah, I like that about this one, definitely. I think that covers everything we need to say about the middle third of your palate in that case then. So back third of the palate, you have this really nice, you have this really nice little bit of, I would say, the back third of the palate, the layers are kind of similar, but you can feel that they just line up a little bit differently. But in the border region between middle and back third of your palate, you get a nice little bit of kind of bready build up there, for sure, and it's like a kind of fresh white bread. The base of that back third of your palate is a little bit more, as we would say, it's got a little bit more kind of, the bread crust is a little bit drier. As I've always said, more dry and bitter flavours come out further back on the palate, the sweeter flavours come out further forward. So yeah, you can feel the bread crusty character is just that little bit drier. You've got a little bit of a more kind of crisp, crackery dryness above that. Then there's a wee touch of there's a layer in there that's almost like it's a little touch like a wholemeal kind of brown bready layer actually. Then you get the fluffy white bready layer above that, and you can feel a little bit of the kind of Pilsner malty dryness just creeping over on the top, and that rounds off the top of that back third of your palate. But above everything else, you start to get some kind of yeasty esters out of the beer. And for me, the yeasty esters are very light and kind of white and farmhousey bready, a little bit of McVitie's digestive biscuit, and there's a little bit of that kind of McVitie's digestive biscuity character. And yeah, the way that goes together is quite nice. So yeah, you can feel that. I always get a little bit of honeycomb and McVitie's digestive biscuit on the back third of the palate with these kind of farmhousey bready notes. But you can definitely feel that the back third of the palate, the flavour is taller, then as you come further forward into that middle third of your palate, the flavour's just kind of condensed down and squashed together. So yeah, I like how that pieces together for sure. So, yeah, it is a nice beer, this one, I do have to say that. So, on the, I think we've covered the malty and yeasty side of this beer. Then on the hoppy side of things, it's kind of what you'd expect. In the back corners of the palate, you've got a nice little bit of earthiness in there. As you move further forward, it's a little touch herbal, and as you push toward the kind of front corners of the tongue, it's a little bit more kind of floral and aromatic, I would say. So yeah, you've got that there. Around the front curve of the tongue, it's a little bit lighter and more grassy, I would say. You've got a little bit of that grassy zestiness in there. So yeah, the way that goes together is pretty nice. And it's quite an oily green component coming out of this one too. So yeah, interesting. I'd be curious to know what hops they've used in this. If it's maybe a little bit of I don't know why I want to say German Sapphire. There's just something about the green component in this one reminds me of that, but it could just be the rice making it a little bit more oily. But I always found that German Sapphire had a little bit more of an oily green component to it. But anyway, front third of your palate then, and the fruity side of the beer. So the border region between front third and middle third of your palate, you get a little bit of bready build up in there, which is quite nice. The base of that front third of your palate, you've got the bread crust, you've got a little bit of Jacob's cream cracker, and then above that you've got that nice oily bubble where the juicy fruity esters just roll their way out of the beer. So that's quite nice. Yeah, that nice kind of oily fruity character coming out of this one is pretty good actually as well. So yeah, the fruity character is kind of what it's very similar to what I was describing from the aroma, to be honest with you. So yeah, for me, the fruity character that comes out of this, it's quite it's at the back of that front third of your palate. I would say there's a little touch of like a sultana type note to this one, but for me, it's mainly like a kind of smooth gooseberry, very slight lychee kind of colour flavour that dominates the fruity side of this beer. As you reach the kind of front tip of your tongue, it's maybe got a little bit of limey character as well, but for me, yeah, it's mainly an oily gooseberry character, and this is quite common in Japanese sakes and things like this, which are basically rice wines, or very strong rice beer, I guess you could say. But yeah, this one, for me, the fruity character is mainly just like an oily gooseberry type thing. Yeah, with a wee touch of lime or a wee touch of orange, something like that, at the very front tip of the tongue. I think that summarises it quite nicely, to be honest with you. So, yeah, interesting stuff. I do like how this, as I say, I do like how this beer kind of pieces together. On the, I think that's everything we need to say about the flavour of this beer, to be honest with you. So in terms of the, overall, the overall mouthfeel of this beer, I would say that this one, it's kind of top end of light bodied, bottom end of mid bodied. Carbonation is very smooth. Yeah, quite a, as I say, like quite an oily, like a really quite oily beer, this one, I would say, rather than anything else. So it's quite light and drinkable, but still it has that wee bit of oily character to it due to the presence of the rice. In terms of the IBUs, I would say this one is, it is like 20, it's 20, about 20, 25 IBUs, something like that. The malt base, like we said, there's a nice little bit of grainy character in there, a nice little bit of smooth breadiness, and you've got that oily sort of sweetness as well, and the way that that goes together is really, really nice. On top of that, you've got a little bit of an oily, fruity character, like we said, kind of very slightly limey, very slightly kind of gooseberry-like. So, yeah, the way that that goes together is really quite nice, in fact. So, yeah, it gets a big thumbs up from me. This one, I really, really like how this pieces together. So, yeah, really nice rice lager, this one. When I think about other examples in this style category, for me, this is one of the more oily and smooth ones that I've come across. I have had ones before that have a little bit more hoppy character and a little bit more crispness to them as well, which are always interesting. But yeah, this is good, and it's another solid lager beer from Total. So, can't complain at all. But I think we can leave it at that for this one. Always nice to try new stuff from Tool. And I hope you guys have enjoyed my take on this one as well. I'm a bit disappointed that I didn't get a few more cans of this, because this is pretty damn good actually. So yeah, once again, thank you for watching my beer reviews. Until the next time, please like, subscribe, share, all the usual YouTube stuff. Let me know your own thoughts on this beer in the comments section below. Let me know what your favourite beers are from Total, and we will no doubt return to these guys again. Oh, knocking the little table at some point in the near future. But until then, Sláinte, Skål, cheers, check out Total. The rice lager is very good, but try some of their other lagers as well. But check out their social media, check out my social media, and I'll see you guys in another review. Sláinte, Skål, and cheers.